The rain hadn't stopped for days. The muddy streets of Big Whiskey looked more like a battlefield than a town. Heavy clouds sagged low, and the whole place smelled of wet earth, fear, and something else. The scent of blood, yet to be spilled. Dear listeners, before we move forward, please subscribe my channel to hit 1,000 figure. Inside Greeley's saloon, the air was thick with smoke and tension. Men spoke in hushed tones. Some pretended to drink, others pretended not to be afraid. But they all waited, the way you wait when you know death is already walking toward you, and it's too late to hide. And then the door creaked open. Every head turned as a shadow filled the frame. William Money. He wasn't the man legends sang about. He looked worn, soaked from the rain, his old shotgun hanging heavy in his hand. His hat dripped water onto the floor. His eyes, those dead, hollow eyes, scanned the room like a butcher choosing which carcass to cut first. Behind the bar stood Little Bill Daggett, still sheriff of Big Whiskey, still smiling that cocky, cruel smile. He had thought Money would run. He had thought fear would eat him alive. But now, seeing Money standing there like a living ghost, even Little Bill's grin faltered, just a little. Money's voice cut through the saloon, low and cold. "Who's the fella owns this shithole?" A silence fell so heavy it crushed the very air. No one moved, no one breathed. Money's eyes found Skinny, the saloon owner, standing near the bar, trembling. Before the man could say a word, Money lifted his shotgun and fired. The blast was deafening. Skinny flew backward, dead before he hit the ground. A glass shattered somewhere. A woman screamed. Men flinched, hands hovering near their guns but not quite daring to draw. The smoke from Money's shotgun curled like a living thing, snaking its way toward the ceiling. He didn't blink, didn't move. He simply racked the shotgun again, ready for whoever came next. Little Bill stepped forward, pulling himself tall, forcing that grin back onto his face. "Well, sir, you are a cowardly son of a bitch. You just shot an unarmed man." Money's reply was flat, almost casual. "Well, he should have armed himself if he's going to decorate his saloon with my friend." The room was frozen in time. Everyone knew what was coming next. The blood, the screams, the reckoning. But no one knew how fast, how brutal, how final it would be. And William Money, the real William Money, was just getting started. For a heartbeat after Money's shotgun roared, the saloon held its breath. Then, like a dam breaking, chaos exploded. Little Bill's deputies, who had been trying to melt into the crowd a moment earlier, suddenly found their courage, or maybe just their panic. Guns were drawn, chairs scraped back, boots stomped across the wooden floor. But William Money didn't flinch. He shifted that heavy shotgun with the steady hands of a man who had killed before, and would again. One of Little Bill's men, a young deputy named Clyde, fumbled his pistol up. Before he could aim, Money turned and fired. The blast took Clyde off his feet, slamming him into a table that collapsed beneath him. Clyde lay there, moaning, blood pooling around his midsection. He wasn't dead yet, but he wouldn't live long. The second barrel was empty now. Money tossed the shotgun aside like a spent tool. In a single, practiced motion, he drew the revolver from his belt. A battered old pistol, heavy and sure. Little Bill moved then, slow and careful, gun raised, speaking like a man trying to calm a spooked wolf. "You killed Skinny. You killed Clyde. Now, maybe we can talk this out." Money's voice came back like iron scraping iron. "I ain't gonna talk much." A gun barked. One of the other deputies tried to shoot Money from the side. Without even looking, Money pivoted and fired. The man jerked backward, hitting the floor hard, his revolver skidding from his grasp. 2 shots, 2 men down. Money was a machine of violence, fueled by old rage and something colder. Absolute purpose. The townsfolk screamed, ducked under tables, bolted for the door. Bottles shattered. The piano in the corner crashed over. In the madness, Little Bill found himself exposed, standing in the middle of the floor, his gun shaking ever so slightly in his hand. It was down to him now. Just him and William Money. For all his talk about law and order, for all the beatings he had given to helpless men and women, Little Bill understood something too late. He wasn't facing a drunk cowboy. He was facing death itself. And death had come calling with no mercy left in his heart. The saloon seemed to shrink around them, 2 men, 2 guns, and the heavy stink of blood in the air. Little Bill Daggett licked his dry lips. His voice, once booming and full of swagger, cracked like an old plank. "I don't deserve this. I was only trying to build a good town," he muttered, more to himself than to Money. William Money didn't flinch. His eyes, cold and merciless, never wavered from Little Bill's trembling hand. The room was still. Even the wounded men groaned quietly now, afraid to draw attention. Little Bill made his move, a desperate, jerky motion. He raised his gun to fire. Money was faster. His old revolver coughed once, then twice. The first bullet struck Little Bill in the chest, spinning him halfway around. The second ripped into his leg, dropping him onto the filthy saloon floor with a wet, heavy thud. Little Bill gasped, trying to breathe, trying to speak. The pain twisted his face into something ugly and small. He wasn't a sheriff anymore, not a lawman, not a protector. Just a broken, dying man sprawled in the muck and sawdust. Money walked over to him, slow and grim. The revolver in his hand pointed straight down at Little Bill's head. From the floor, Little Bill coughed out one last plea. "I don't deserve to die like this." William Money looked down at him, and for a moment, just a brief flicker of a second, there was a shadow of the man he used to be. But mercy had long since been bled out of him, burned away by years of death and whiskey and loss. He answered in a voice as flat and cold as the Wyoming winter. "Deserve's got nothing to do with it." And then, without hesitation, he fired. The shot echoed through the saloon, louder than thunder, silencing even the wind outside. Little Bill was no more. The smoke still hung thick in the saloon, swirling around the wreckage Money had left behind. The townsfolk, the cowards, the bystanders, why, they all stayed frozen where they stood. No one dared to move. William Money, revolver still loose in his hand, turned slowly in a wide, deliberate circle. His voice, rough as gravel, filled the stunned silence. "Any man I see out there with a gun, I'm gonna kill him." No one answered. "And any son of a bitch takes a shot at me, I'm gonna kill him and his wife and his friends and burn his damn house down." The words hit the room like hammer blows. There was no bravado in Money's voice, no loud threats meant to scare. Just a brutal, exhausted certainty, the promise of a man who had walked through hell once already and wasn't afraid to go again. The surviving deputies stood with their hands half raised, paralyzed by fear. Some dropped their guns onto the floor with a clatter. Others just stayed glued to the walls, too afraid even to breathe loudly. Money's boots thudded heavily as he walked across the floorboards, past Little Bill's corpse, past the men he had gunned down without mercy. He reached the doors of the saloon, pushing them open with the barrel of his rifle. The night outside was cold and wet. Rain had begun to fall, thin at first, like the sky itself was bleeding. A few townsfolk had gathered in the muddy street, drawn by the gunfire and the rumors already spreading like wildfire. They shrank back at the sight of Money, his soaked poncho hanging heavy off his shoulders, the rifle glinting in the lantern light. Without breaking stride, Money barked into the night. "You better bury them proper. You hear? You bury them right." He paused, staring into the shadows where he knew more men were hiding. Men who would have cheered when English Bob or Little Bill gunned down some helpless whore, but who now dared not even meet his gaze. "And you tell 'em," he added, voice rising slightly over the hiss of rain. "Tell 'em William Money from Missouri killed every son of a bitch who dared to stand against me." Then, with one last look at the trembling crowd, Money mounted his horse, a tired, shaggy beast as worn out by life as its rider, and rode slowly into the night. No one tried to stop him. No one even thought about it. He had come as a specter of death, and now he left the same way. The rain came harder now, washing the blood from the dirt streets of Big Whiskey. Behind William Money, the town seemed to shrink, not just in the distance, but in spirit, as if it would never again regain the courage it had once falsely claimed. Money rode his worn horse at a slow, deliberate pace, rifle resting across the saddle horn. There was no triumph in him, no celebration, just a grim silence, the silence of a man who had done terrible things because terrible things had been done first. As he passed the edge of town, he saw the faint outlines of frightened faces peering from behind windows, mothers pulling children back, old men tipping their hats out of raw fear, not respect. Everyone knew the same truth. William Money was no hero. He wasn't the Avenger from the dime novels. He was death itself, dressed in a sodden poncho, riding a broken horse into the black rain. His mind drifted, not to the men he had just killed, but to Claudia, his dead wife. It had been her memory that had kept him straight for so long, her love that had dragged him from the whiskey and the guns and the killing. And yet, here he was, the same cold-hearted killer he had once been, the man she had saved him from becoming. He hated himself for it. But survival demanded it. Money knew there was no redemption waiting for him at the end of this road. No second chance, no absolution. Only the endless horizon, and whatever small mercies he could carve out in the time he had left. As he disappeared into the misty darkness, the people of Big Whiskey remained frozen, too terrified even to breathe normally until he was long gone. In the years to come, they would speak of him in hushed voices, of the night William Money came back from the grave. Of the night the devil himself rode through their town and left them with the bitter taste of their own cowardice. And William Money? He rode east across the prairie, vanished into the storms and the myth. Just a shadow in the rain. A man unforgiven.